I wonder who I should play next. Wait, what happened to my mouse? Hello everyone, my name is Borax, and I've been on a mission to play and rate every single champion in the support role. Today we'll be looking at Galio, and the reasons why he works as a support include an AoE passive which enhances his damage, an AoE poke tool that does % max health damage on Q, a W which has a passive magic damage shield that when activated grants Galio damage reduction and an AoE taunt ability, AoE knock up and dash on his E, and then he has his semi-global ultimate, which grants allies a magic shield and knocks enemies up in a large area. Even though he is clearly viable, how strong is he actually? Well, let's find out together, as I rate Galio, the Colossus, on his ability to be played in the support role. In the early game, I like to rate a support's ability to invade, lane, and roam. I'm ashamed in myself that I never ended up invading on Galio's support, as I think he would be quite strong here. Either you can start E to catch up to an isolated target, or if the enemy is grouped up together, you can start your W to CC all of them. For invading, I will give Galio an A+. He's absolutely devastating in the counter-invade category, but his engage range being a bit short prevents me from putting him in the S tier for invading. Now let's talk about laning, where I like to judge a champion based on 3 categories: poking, peeling, and all-inning. Galio is not really a range champion. I mean, sure, he has his Q ability, but it's not really that impactful when it comes to poking, and I'd actually take it third, as you'd rather have your E and W to look for early trades and all-ins. For poking, I will give Galio a C+ rating, and the reason he gets any credit is because of his passive, which does a fat amount of damage and doesn't have the longest cooldown and will really catch opponents off guard and can secure you some nice early kills. It does require you to be in melee range, however, so it's not insane poke. Recently, I've been talking about how strong AoE CC is, and Galio has 2 basic abilities with this capability, which can help him peel like crazy. Your E can be a bit tricky to hit multiple targets with it, but your W is a great tool to CC multiple enemies. Start charging it up, walk towards them, and they either have to use their CC on you, walk away, or get taunted for a good amount where all they can do is attack you instead of the ADC. I think the taunt CC is the best designed one in the whole game, as it's so funny watching enemies being forced to attack the tank instead of the target they want to go for. Then you also have your ultimate, which is great for peeling if the enemies don't have their CC up. It grants your allies a shield and will provide them with CC. It's a very useful tool in the early game because it gives you the confidence to walk around to place in clear vision and look for gank opportunities, because you know that at any second your ADC suddenly needs you to come back, you can do so by ulting in. For peeling, I will give Galio a S+. There will be plenty of times where you can save your ADC from situations that seem doomed, which will make you feel like the hero that Galio is meant to be. While Galio is great at protecting, he's also crazy strong when it comes to attacking, and I could imagine he isn't bad at snacking. I actually don't know if there are any champions stronger than Galio level 2 in terms of CC. Who else also has 2 different AoE CC tools, which, when coupled with Ignite and your passive, actually ends up being a devastating amount of damage, and I love it. You do want to try and engage though after opponents use their CC first, as getting your W cancelled does suck, but if anyone ever misses an ability, they are screwed. I will admit, Galio E isn't the longest range, but if you combine it with Flash, you will cover so much ground, and even if you don't land the knockup, you should be able to get the taunt off, which is plenty of CC on its own. Then you have your ultimate, which is crazy good when combined with a gank, as if someone can get a flanking position, then you can reinforce them very quickly with this ability, and for all these reasons, I feel very comfortable giving Galio another S+ for his ability to all in. Not only does he have crazy CC, his damage with Q and passive really adds up and made playing Galio a pure thrill. Now that we've talked about Galio's laning prowess, let's rate the matchups that he might have to face. If you follow this channel, then you know that I disdain Morgana, and would say that she is the League of Legends equivalent of driving a Hummer and then complaining about gas prices. I hate Morgana, and I do think she is a tricky matchup as she has solid range, and her CC immunity is very annoying. Galio is an interesting champion in the support role because while yes, he does struggle against long range poke, he also really scales well with a MR build, so you can neutralize their damage a bit. Also, their supports are so squishy that if you can get your CC on top of them, they can all be one-shot. I think a big weakness of Galio is enemy CC cancelling his W ability, which a lot of these peel style champions can do from range, but again, if they ever misuse an ability, that's an open invitation for you to go in. I think Galio's engage threat is why he can do really well into a lot of these squishy champions who do outrange you, but they don't have instant CC pre-level 6, so your potential to kill them is a real threat. Champions I think will really hate playing against a Galio support include a Yuumi lane, as Galio always has the potential to just walk up, as he doesn't care about minions blocking his abilities. I think Galio is also a great answer to most enemy engage melee supports, as he provides a ton of counter engage with his taunt, enabling you to neutralize these lanes, which few champions can actually feel confident in doing. You do have to be a bit cautious about their ability to easily cancel your W, so you are going to want to focus more on counter engage than all in yourself. Finally, we have a bunch of champions in the who plays these guys even tier, as I'm still waiting to see enemies pick them, but hey, at least I'm willing to pull out the Galio support, even if no one else is. Now let's talk about ADCs that you want to pair Galio with, and I think he's pretty amazing with any champion that wants to go in really hard and beat up on someone. I think champions like Jhin and Kalista deserve a special shout out, as they can follow up on your CC so well, and they really appreciate your peel. But champions like Tristana, Lucian, and Draven are also special, as they can jump in with you for a quick all-in. In the hypothetical case that your ADC is a useless bonobo, then you might want to consider roaming from time to time, so let's talk about that. When Galio is played as a mid laner, he usually wants to wave clear as fast as possible, and then look for roam opportunities, as he is such a good playmaker with his team thanks to the CC he provides. Galio in the support role is no different, except for the fact that you might not have Predator. Being able to respond to plays with ultimate is such a powerful tool, and one people will frequently forget about, but it really does have a strong impact. It does kind of suck that Galio's ulti cooldown is ridiculously long, but thankfully the rest of his kit is still very powerful with all the CC he provides, and for roaming I will give Galio a S. The biggest downside is that his engage range isn't the longest in the world, but I think his AoE CC is enough to make up for that weakness, as that means you can have a very large impact in multi-person fights. Let's give Galio a rating for his ability to support in the early game, which will slot at a S+. He is one of the best champions out there in the support role in my opinion, and his lack of poke can be neutralized by the amount of damage that he can dish out if he gets on top of you. I truly had so much fun playing Galio support and built up huge leads in my games, but let's find out if I was able to transition that into a smooth. In the late game, responsibilities of a support like Turret include their ability to get picks and to teamfight. Galio is great at helping his team get picks. There are two methods where he really shines here. The first is playing around vision, where you hide in a bush, and as an enemy approaches, you can charge up your W to taunt them, giving you an easy E to follow up with, and if someone is around, that should be too much CC for them to be able to even press an ability. The other way you can get picks is by looking for a fight around the map that you can ulti to, which will turn a 1v1 play into a 2v1 play, and while I might not be the best at math, I do think that 2 is the bigger number. For getting picks, I will give Galio a S+ rating. You have the CC you need to have your team catch up to you, and you should also be tanky enough not to die in the process, which is a beautiful thing. Now let's talk about team fighting, where support's responsibilities include engaging, peeling, and sometimes dealing damage. Galio isn't a bad engage champion on his own, but he's even better as a follow-up to someone else who can go in, as you can then ulti on top of them, and that ult, when it's not interrupted, is massive with the amount of CC it provides. If your team doesn't have someone that can initiate the fight for you to follow up on, then either look for a flank, or you can choose to flash E in to start off the fight. For engaging, I will give Galio Support another S+. It might be getting tiresome, but man I love the strength of his engage, and I think it's so much fun. The biggest downside is that it's a bit teammate reliant and won't be good in every team comp, but thankfully there are a lot of meta junglers at the moment with good engage for Galio to follow up on, and some certain top laners like a Malphite or Camille that also make for a nice pairing. Peeling as Galio's support is even better and not overly complicated, as you just need to press W and then stand next to your carry, and if the enemies are in that zone, they will be forced to attack you instead of the person they want to hit. Your ult is another amazing peel tool, especially thanks to its range and shield that it grants, as you don't always have to be right next to your ADC in order to peel for them. I will give Galio Support a S rating for his ability to peel in the late game, and the reason for that is because he doesn't have any shielding or healing that he can spam, so if the enemy bruiser is able to survive through your CC combo, then your carry could be in a bit of trouble, but that's only an issue if they are really fed, and not many champions should be able to deal with that. Now we have the category of dealing damage, and honestly Galio kinda chunks, especially against squishy ADCs. Like, I was able to 100 to 0 this poor Jinx, who died to minions and Thormail, and then I was able to bop this Ezreal as he went really ham for our mid laner. But at the same time, I didn't have the damage to finish off the Zed, who had 1 HP, which sucked. I think Galio Support deserves an A- for dealing damage. He has a ton of AoE, which is nice in the support role, and percent health damage on his Q. Before we look at Galio's overall ability to support, let's take a look at the runes and items that I would recommend. My personal favorite rune was Aftershock, as it gives you a ton of tankiness if you can hit a CC ability. Secondarily, I'm a sucker for perfect timing, as I love the playmaking capabilities it grants you, and I do like to build Zhonya's from time to time. Hex Flash is intriguing as well though, as you could catch people off guard with it. Another rune option, which isn't bad, is Glacial Augment for more lockdown on opponents, but you do have to play more carefully with your engages, as you will be a lot more squishy than normal with this rune. If you are a huge roam fan, Predator is great at enhancing that, but I don't think it's what you want most of the time, as it does greatly weaken the 2v2 potential you have in the bot lane. Now let's talk about items. For your gold income item, I would recommend Relic Shield, but I will say you have to be careful with Galio's passive executing extra minions around the one you actually want to target, which might mean you won't have it up for cannon. Then you want to go for your boots, and I think on the melee engage supports, plated steel caps or merc treads are your best option, but I'd lean more towards merc treads as Galio's damage and tankiness scales with MR. When it comes to your first item, it should be situational based on what the enemies have. A safe bet is to go for your mythic, and I really liked an Evan Shroud to increase the damage enemies take after you CC them. I do see 3 other mythics that deserve a serious shout out though. Everfrost is great for more pick and CC, but does mean you will be a lot squishier than normal. Turbo Chemtake sounds intriguing to help you gap close and get on top of people to taunt them. Then finally a Locket is a fine option against enemies with a lot of AoE. Some other items that I built and enjoyed included Zhonya's, as you'll be going in a ton, and getting that stasis effect is amazing. An early Bramble Vest is great against teams with a lot of healing, and Galio can use a Thormail very effectively. Another build I like to go for against heavy magic team comps is a lot of MR, and then an Anathema's Chains against the solo AD threat. But I will say, Anathema's Chains in general I think is such an underrated item in solo queue, as more often than not there will only be one hyper-fed threat on the enemy team, and being able to CC them for longer and not get as easily one-shot by them can have a major impact in the game. Now that we've talked about the runes and items, let's give Galio an overall rating for his ability to support, which will slot at a S+. I think Galio has the potential to have a major impact on the entire game with his abundant amount of CC and his global ultimate, which means you are always a threat to the enemies. Galio is also a pretty tanky support, especially against heavy magic damage teams, so as Zeri and Kai'Sa remains in the meta, I think more people should really look to pick this guy up again in the support role, as you can still flex him in the mid lane, which makes the pick even better. Would I recommend you play Galio support? I mean, obviously. You might get frustrated at his slightly limited engage range, but if you can get on top of people, man is it so much fun. And to recap, the best time to pick Galio's support will be when you have another champion on your team that can engage, so that you can follow up with your ultimate, and it's even more turbo if the enemy has an abundant amount of magic damage at their disposal. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would leave it a like, that would be amazing. And if you consider subscribing, that would make my day. Again, thanks for watching, and I want to wish you good luck and have fun if you are playing Galio support for yourself.